In an effort to choke off Iran's oil revenues, the U.S. on Monday threatened sanctions on countries, including American allies, if they import Iranian crude.
Our goal has been to get countries to cease importing Iranian oil entirely.
The United States reimposed sanctions in November on exports of Iranian oil after Trump unilaterally pulled out of the 2015 Iran nuclear deal. But the U.S. also granted exemptions to 8 nations, including China, India, South Korea, and Japan, to keep importing Iranian oil. On Monday, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said those waivers will not be renewed.
Today I'm announcing that we will no longer grant any exemptions. We're going to zero.
The news quickly sent crude prices to a 6-month high, and the Trump administration was just as quick to try and calm fears of tightening oil supply.
The United States has been in constant discussions with allies and partners to help them transition away from Iranian crude to other alternatives.
Countries reliant on crude imports and oil traders are trying to gauge the potential impact.
The market is somewhat skeptical of the idea that the U.S. has this all worked out.
Reuters U.S. commodities editor David Gaffin.
It is unclear whether people are accepting the entirely rosy scenario that the U.S. is laying out, that Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates and the other major OPEC producers, not including Iran, of course, will be able to fill that gap. Now, a sort of clear-eyed look at this would suggest that the Saudis do have the room to produce more.
Even if Saudi Arabia and other exporters ramp up supply to meet demand, some analysts told Reuters that tapping those reserves now could mean a loss in spare capacity, meaning less of a cushion if there are unforeseen crises ahead.
And now, with round-the-clock updates from Reuters journalists, here are today's top stories.
More languages bring new challenges for Facebook.
Tesla says its robo-taxis are on the way.
Trump shrugs off impeachment concerns.
This is Reuters Now.
As smartphones bring social media to every corner of the globe, companies like Facebook are struggling to stop hate speech and other problematic content, unable to keep up with the plethora of languages on their services. Reuters tech reporter Paresh Dave has the story.
The issue right now is that Facebook offers its services in more than 100 languages. That means, menus, settings, typing options are available in those more than 100 languages. But the content rules, the community standards, are only translated into about 40 of them, and that was as of early March. The same problem exists with WhatsApp and Instagram, where there's big gaps between the number of languages supported and the number of languages in which community guidelines or terms of use are translated into.
Facebook relies heavily on its 2 billion users to flag content that potentially violates the rules. But that's hard to do if they're not aware of the rules in the first place. To deal with the mounting challenge, Facebook has focused on creating automated tools to monitor content, but some work in fewer than 20 languages. A Reuters report found last year that hate speech on Facebook that helped foster ethnic cleansing in Myanmar went unchecked, in part because Facebook until last year had insufficient tools and moderators for the local language. Human rights officials fear Facebook is moving too slow again. In parts of Africa, Facebook is trying to address the issue.
They just opened their first content moderation site, or are actually in the process of opening it in sub-Saharan Africa. And that site will specialize in languages like Somali and a few others. And so trying to bring that cultural context and cultural expertise locally to content moderation is another step that Facebook is taking to try to deal with this issue.
And the stakes are only growing. Countries, including Australia, Singapore, and the UK, are now threatening harsh new regulations if a company fails to promptly remove objectionable posts, punishable by steep fines or even jail time for executives.
Tesla robo-taxis are on the way, and CEO Elon Musk says they'll be available in some markets as soon as next year. The best part? Musk says those robo-taxis may eventually cost a fraction of hailing an Uber or Lyft, and predicts in 3 years they'll have no pedals or steering wheel and could cost $25,000 or less. Musk made this surprise prediction after his tech executives gave a 2-hour-long briefing to investors focusing on Tesla's self-driving tech, the chip Tesla built from the ground up, and the software that runs the car. In incredible detail. Reuters reporter Alexandria Sage.
Elon Musk really needed to deliver something to Wall Street today that would get them excited about Tesla's growth prospects. Obviously, self-driving is the big topic. On the other hand, it also opens up Tesla to criticism that it overpromises, it misses deadlines, sometimes it over-exaggerates its vehicle's capabilities. All of this was on display today. Classic Musk, bold pronouncements about his car's capabilities, very aggressive timelines, but it can't really detract from the fact that in 2 days, Tesla is expected to announce a loss in its first quarter.
Security video released by Sri Lankan authorities Tuesday shows one of the suspected Easter Sunday bombers walking into a church in Negombo wearing a backpack. Moments later, many people were lying either dead or injured, here and in churches and luxury hotels in the capital, Colombo.
And I saw that my daughter was on the floor.
Sudesh Kolone survived the bombings. His wife and daughter were killed.
I don't know what to do.
Memorials are being held for the more than 300 people killed in the attack. On Tuesday, the Islamic State group claimed responsibility for the bombings in a statement by its Amaq news agency. It did not provide any evidence to back up the claim. One document seen by Reuters showed police received a tip-off about a possible attack by a little-known Islamist group. But there are mounting questions as to whether the intelligence was shared widely enough and whether the authorities failed to act.
The Supreme Court on Tuesday is set to hear arguments over the Trump administration's plan to add a citizenship question to the 2020 census, a move that has sparked outcry from Democrats and legal battles throughout the U.S. court system. Critics say adding the question would dissuade immigrants from filling out the census form, leading to a population undercount that would have ramifications across the country, says Reuters' Lawrence Hurley.
Basically, if there's an undercount in the census, it means that in some parts of the country you could have hundreds of thousands of people who are not getting counted. And that then leads into how congressional districts get apportioned across the country, which means that certain urban areas may end up with less representation in Congress, even though their population is higher.
New York-based immigrant rights group Make the Road filed a joint lawsuit with other similar organizations against the Trump administration, claiming the president's plan to add a citizenship question is a, quote, racist attempt to intimidate and undercount immigrants.
We know that there is palpable fear that is created within immigrant communities when an issue around citizenship or legal status are asked by anyone, but in particular by the federal government. And so what we've heard from immigrant community members is that they could potentially not fill out the census if there is a citizenship question on the census.
Census data is also important in other ways. It's used to help decide how federal funds are allocated in all kinds of different programs. And these numbers are based on the population, not on who is a citizen, who isn't a citizen.
The case comes before the Supreme Court in a pair of lawsuits after 3 courts this year blocked the citizenship question. The Trump administration says the question will yield better data to enforce the Voting Rights Act, which protects eligible voters from discrimination. The top court, which has a 5-4 conservative majority, will consider whether Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross, who oversees the Census Bureau, violated a federal law and the U.S. Constitution's mandate to tally the nation's population every 10 years. A ruling is due by the end of June.
Simply seeking information.
Are you worried about impeachment, Mr. President? Yes!
President Donald Trump on Monday shrugged off concerns that Democrats might try to impeach him after special counsel Robert Mueller's report on the Russia probe said Trump had tried multiple times to impede the investigation. Trump weighed in after top Democrats in Congress over the weekend refused to rule out impeaching him for obstruction of justice. Reuters White House correspondent Steve Holland.
The general consensus is there's not much concern about impeachment. They're trying to skate over some of the things in the report that suggested the president had tried to stifle the investigation. They would rather us focus on the conclusion that the Trump campaign did not collude with Russia, but they feel pretty good about things going forward.
In a letter to fellow Democrats on Monday, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi said, "While our views range from proceeding to investigate the findings of the Mueller report or proceeding directly to impeachment, we all firmly agree that we should proceed down a path of finding the truth." Pelosi later held a conference call with House Democrats.
The Democratic debate is go ahead and try to impeach him now or let this be debated on the campaign trail in 2020.
Mueller's report detailed several instances in which he said Trump attempted to interfere with the probe, including asking then White House counsel Don McGahn to have Mueller removed, which McGahn ignored. Mueller stopped short of concluding Trump had committed a crime, noting that Congress has the power to address whether Trump violated the law.
The report is very damning.
House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jerry Nadler on Sunday told NBC's Meet the Press that if proven, some of this would be impeachable. Nadler last week issued a subpoena to the Justice Department to get the full unredacted Mueller report, and on Monday subpoenaed McGahn to appear before his committee. Some Democrats are already calling for impeachment, including Congresswomen Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Maxine Waters, and 2020 presidential candidates Julian Castro and Senator Elizabeth Warren.
You're up to date. For more, download the Reuters TV app on your mobile or streaming device.